All right, and welcome to the video to talk a bit about Pax Unplugged. So I know it was a little bit earlier in this month, a couple weeks, and it's always during the busiest time for me as we get close to finals. Actually, I've giving finals. By the time you see this, I'll be in the middle of giving finals. Also, if you watch my video on Conquest, I look exactly the same because I recorded this about 5 minutes afterwards. So for this video, I wanted to go through and just talk about the Pax Unplugged experience, games I picked up, things I was excited about there, for things I liked. I might be able to talk a little bit about some games that I didn't necessarily like as well, and to kind of go through what you're going to see board game wise here in the next probably several months or across the course of the next several months. All right, let's go into what it is, though, just in case anyone doesn't know. So PAX Unplugged is a board game convention in Philadelphia. It's done in the beginning of December. The exact week can vary depending on exactly when the weekend falls in December, but it's usually within the very first weekend. It runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It runs essentially 10 to midnight on Friday, Saturday, 10 to 6 on Sunday. That is put in the convention center. It is, what I will say, if you haven't gone, if you can go, if you enjoy board games, it to me is almost a must go. If you enjoy miniatures, there's tons of options for that as well. If you enjoy just geek culture in general, it's a really great show. Friday, not too crowded. Saturday, very, very crowded. Sunday, a little bit lighter again. So if you're trying to do that sort of one-day experience, Friday's probably your best day. By Sunday, some stuff has sold out. But Friday's a pretty good day if you do a one-day experience, because for that one-day experience, you don't have quite as much of people that you're trying to fight space for. So a very important thing to be able to think about. However, if you're like me and my wife, we go for the entire weekend. So due to some family things that I'm not going to get into, we didn't get there on Friday till a little bit later in the day, probably about, I want to say it was about 3 o'clock or so. But normally we drop the dog off at the kennel. He absolutely loves everyone there. He doesn't like them if they show up near the house, but when he's at kennel, he absolutely loves every person. Drop him off there. We go there, try to get there for between 10 to 11, and we're there nonstop the whole time. Usually we don't leave. We leave sometimes before we get there, breakfast at Reading Terminal Market right across the street, which if you haven't been there, if you're anywhere in Philly, at least do one meal there. I will tell you, depending on the time you go, you could wait a very long time. We did breakfast Sunday. We got in at a good time, so it only took 20 minutes to get breakfast. People who showed up shortly after us, it was 40 minutes to an hour for them to get their breakfast. We went to a crepe place. I don't remember the name of it. The wife loves crepes. She likes to go there. I have no problem with thin pancakes. So that's a good option. Some people treat conventions like this as, sort of the surrounding experience. To me, I want to immerse myself in the convention itself. I do my best not to leave. I try to be there from the second it opens till the very second it closes. All of that. That's the experience I want to have. Essentially, I shotgun months worth of board games, of gaming, and all of that into this. I do plenty of gaming throughout the rest of the year, but this is a time when I get to spend the whole weekend doing it, especially because of my wife enjoys. I go with family as well. I have my sister, brother-in-law all go. I have a bunch of friends who go. So it's a good opportunity to be able to do this, play these sorts of games, play things, try things out in an environment meant for it, at a time when, could really use that good pick-me-up of something, because you're in the middle of, or starting into winter. It's now dark before I get home from work and all of that. It really is a fun and nice experience. It's a pretty big show, but it's still very manageable. There are tons and tons of vendors. If you say you want board games and like that, if you want miniatures, most main miniature lines had some form of support, some sort of tournaments. GW has a giant booth, and in particular, this was the weekend release of Imperialis. I was able to go in and get for both myself and other people releases that stores were short on. I was able to pick up essentially anything I wanted for Imperialis. They actually even cover some other Forge World. The only thing I couldn't get was Arvis Lighters that I wanted for my Solar Aux, but everything else I was able to grab. So miniature-wise, there's some other ones. Monster Fight Club was there as well with Cyberpunk. I was talking to Mac there. We're going to have him on the show as well to talk about Cyberpunk. Miniature-wise, I don't know if there's a lot of other miniature vendors. I know WizKids is there with some things. I went through and actually took a look at their Star Trek game that they're coming out with. It looked fine. I was a little ho-hum on it. It looks kind of like X-Wing with some bits of diplomacy. Not exactly, but kind of bits of diplomacy. I want to reserve judgment until I actually take a look at it more and try it out for longer. But miniature-wise, a bit of support. Bigger things, of course, is board games. But if you do like miniatures, there was several different like LVO-style qualifiers that were there. I know MCP had one. There's Heresy events. There's 40K, usually at least open play. Age of Sigmar open play. There's Battle. There's whatever sort of miniature stuff you want. If you enjoy RPGs, there's tons of that as well. I like RPGs. My wife doesn't, so I don't tend to do it because I'm not just going to go leave her for 4 hours. Plus, at a con, I'd rather do other things. I can RPG with my friends. There's other things I want to do there. So if you're into any of this sort of stuff and you can get to it when it happens in Philly, I absolutely strongly suggest that you go next year. It was a great experience. So what I thought I would talk about in this, for the moment, we'll get to some other stuff later, is some of the games I picked up. So I have some bags over here of various games that I have. You actually see one of the things behind me is Imperialis, so I picked that up while there as well. And actually I'll have to pause the video at some point to go grab a game that I believe is over there that I picked up as well. I have most of them with me. There's a few I'll talk about. Most I have the newer ones with me. There's certain things we picked up. So Codenames, XXL. If you enjoy Codenames, so I'm going to give brief overviews of games. I am, for the other ones I have next to me, I'm going to be doing longer form reviews. But for now, we'll discuss the basics of them and certain thoughts on those. For Codenames, Codenames is a great party game, especially the XXL. So essentially the cards are much, much bigger. Normal Codenames, the cards are very, very small. In this, they're much, much bigger, which makes it very much easier to see, especially if you have a large group. Everyone can see it. For Codenames, essentially what it is, you have 2 teams of however many people, a minimum 2 per team. You have clue givers on each side. They're looking at a grid, so it's a 5x5 grid of card names, cards with various titles and words in all of them. And what they're looking at is a small little map that tells them which ones are theirs, say in blue, which ones are the opponent's words in red, which ones are neutrals in a tan sort of color, and which one is essentially the kill word. And what you're trying to do is give a single word clue with a number attached to it that tells your team how many words relate to what you've said. So if you say, let's say Africa and Australia were words out there, you might say continents, 2. And you would want them to pick out those 2 as continents. They pick one at a time. They have to choose at least one, but they can always stop early if they're not sure. In other words, if you either didn't give a good clue or you gave a great clue and your team isn't thinking that way, then they can stop. You are always at any point allowed to guess one extra word, which means if you miss one now because you told me to and I wasn't sure, if later we are more sure because of what the opponents have said, we can go one extra. Whoever goes first has to get an extra word. And like I said, if your team guesses that kill word, then you are out, you lose. It's a great game. There has been many times when I play it when you give a clue and you're like, all right, that was a great clue. They'll never go towards the opponent's words. They'll never go through the word that's going to get me out. And then you listen to them talk. And you hear them start to meander around it and get more and more closer to that. And you realized you or they have made a grave mistake. Actually, and what's fun about it is sometimes things line up well. It's easy to be able to say one clue for 2 or 3 words. Sometimes you can't find connections. Sometimes you really have to make a stretch and hope they get it. I at one point had theater, opera, play, and I think there was one more, and one of them was the kill word, which means any clue I come up with, there's a really good chance they would guess it because any that links 2 probably links the 3rd or the 4th as well. So that's something we picked up. I'm not showing that one off box-wise, but we have that. We are actually just playing it. We've actually played it now 3 or 4 times since we got it in the last few weeks. So for things I'm going to show off and talk about, we'll pull the Board Game Geek thing as well. First thing I picked up, the very first day, actually, on Friday, so what I did for this, I made a list by going through publishers, by looking at top games of the year, by looking through their first looks. First looks are games that are coming out of Essen and places like that, that essentially either have just gone on sale, about to go on sale, or are still brand new for the year that you can try out. So one of the games I wanted to try was Earth. So for Earth, this is Inside Up Games. They're a Canadian game company. I'll be honest, I had to look up the other games they've done. I don't know them. But this, if you see on the box here, if you're looking, this side, has all kinds of awards. This is on a lot of people's top 10 list for the year. It is absolutely currently on my top 10 list for the year. This is a great game. So for a little bit about what this game is, and we'll go to the Board Game Geek to discuss it as well. For a little bit about this game, you see it's rocking a 7.7. Still pretty good. I can understand why. Weighted complexity, 2.87 out of 5. I love complex games. This is an engine builder tableau building game. In essence, what you're doing in this game is you are doing things like planting on an island. So you're essentially cultivating an island. So you have options of things like planting a card. It could be flora, fauna, it could be environments, things like that. You have other things as well. The big key in this is when you do something, your opponent does something as well. So when I play an action that, say, lets me put down 2 cards, if I get to put down 2 cards and draw some cards, you will get an option to be able to play a card or draw a card. So when it's my active turn, you still have things that you can do. Also off of that, the 4 actions in the game are also color-coded. And your cards have these colors on them. So if I choose, say again, we're going to go off the first action because it's easy. If I choose that first action, which lets me play cards down, it is a green action, which means if any of the cards in your tableau have that green action on them, you get to do what it says. And it could do a variety of things for you. Certain things you're doing, you're putting cubes down in terms of, sprouts was the word I couldn't think of. I was sitting there struggling, I couldn't remember the word sprouts. You're putting cubes down as sprouts. You're putting growths down essentially as either trees or anything like that. And this is a point salad type of game. So you're getting points from everything you do. The more sprouts you have, you get points. You are composting cards. Composting cards, hey, is worth points. Putting up your growth, hey, that's worth points. Cards are worth points. You have other actions for points. You have tons of ways to get points. It's not uncommon for scores in this game to be 200-300. My first playthrough was actually just about 300 for us. All of us were in the mid to high 2s. So it is a high scoring game. But one of those actions lets you put down growth. Well, hey, or draw cards. But if I do something that lets me draw a bunch of cards or essentially income, you can take a lesser effect. And now we all get the colored action that we have. So one of the actions lets you essentially compost. You get to do some other things, but you got the compost. It's red, which means that any of my red actions go. So there's your engine. You're looking at these cards, and some of your cards will say, hey, if you have this symbol in the row or in the column, you get bonuses. So hey, for every mushroom symbol you have, you get to compost a card if they're in the row. Oh, well, I'll start stacking those up. There's end game scoring tiles. There's during game scoring tiles. There's tons of ways to get points, tons of things to do. You're looking to try to build up your board state to be able to get good things to happen to you. It was an absolute pleasure. I actually did get a chance to play this game. I just played this game actually at a charity event. So I might not crack my copy open yet, but I did get to play it. There'll be a longer review coming for this shortly in the future, essentially in the new year when I can sit down and do some longer reviews. So let's take a look at what else is in this bag. Next thing I'm going to pull out from this bag is My Island. My Island is a Reiner Knizia game. This is essentially I want to call it spiritual successor to My City. It kind of has the very base concept of it, and then they remove it entirely. The way I had explained to me, I think is absolutely true from everything I've seen related to this game. I'm very excited to play. This is from Cosmos, for anyone who doesn't know. So My City, what essentially happens in My City, it is a legacy style game that at the end of, I want to say it was 12 games. I believe it was 12, might have been 13, but I believe it was 12. At the end, you have your standard board, but when you flip it over, you have this unique city that you've built. And you're essentially following it through almost an industrial revolution. So you're starting very basic, and then every single time they're telling you a bit of a story and why rules of the games have changed. So new rules are picked up and kept, some rules show up, some rules change, and all of that. The way I had this described to me was this was Reiner Knizia taking essentially the training wheels off. So this game tends to be more complex. Obviously, you're making an island in this one, but it's more complex. You're doing a bit more, but he's giving himself more freedom of what's going to happen to you. Now, as we'll notice for this one, this is, again, another game that's brand new for this year. I tried to stick not entirely to new games this year, but mostly. Like I said, it's ranking a 7.5, a 2.2 in terms of weighting out of 5. I personally prefer heavier games, so I'm absolutely loving that. And I'm very, very excited to get into what this game really goes through. My City was a great game that me and my wife played. We had a lot of fun doing that. You can play this. You could probably play this at 1, but I don't think it's going to be fun at that. You can usually play these between 2 to 4. Is it 5? This one's 2 to 4. It says about 30 minutes. The games are actually very fast. What we found is we usually do 2 to 3 chapters in a night. That would be our evening. Then a few days later, maybe the next week, we come back, we do it again. You can see in this one, rather than individual tiles like the first one, tiles of various sizes. They covered up essentially a grid. This one is more a hexagon grid. And then you are covering it up with little hexagons that are connected. But as you see, there's all these different chapters. As you go through, you are going to get new additional rules that tell you, and at the end, you're going to have a unique board. So this is one, like I said, that I'm very excited to try out. My wife and I will be playing this in the new year once Christmas is over for us, because that's just a very busy time of year. Like I said, I have finals. I finished grading finals on the 23rd. That's the day of Twilight Imperium that we're playing, our twice annual Twilight Imperium. And then 2 days later is Christmas. After that, got a ton of time. So we're absolutely going to go through that then. So that's another one that I picked up. That was from Cosmos. Things I won't show, we also picked up some of their escape room games. We absolutely love their escape room games. They're nice, light games. It's a nice evening. You'll spend a couple hours or maybe longer, depending on how good you are at those. We're not great at them, so it usually takes us a couple extra hours. All right, for other things. The next one, I got on the train of Space Bees. So, apiary. Did you ever watch the episode of Futurama where they go into space to take honey from space bees? Well, the humans are gone. Now it's purely just bees in space. So, apiary, this is from Stonemaier Games. This is I don't believe it's a first-time designer. No, I think it actually is a first-time designer, if memory serves. I do believe this is actually a first-time designer. Actually, I did meet the artist. The artist was actually there at PAX, signing copies of things. I didn't buy this right then. I bought this Saturday night. So essentially what happens is the vending hall closes at 6. You can go into the gaming space, and there's one vendor over there to buy stuff from. I bought this and another game that I'm going to show shortly on Saturday night because they were running a bit of a sale. I wanted it either way. They're running a sale, so I picked it up then. All right, so let's get into what apiary is. So apiary 8.0 on Board Game Geek, 2.85 complexity rating. So it's getting more complex, which I personally love. This is, for all intents and purposes, I would call it a worker placement style game. The trick to it, because worker placement should always have a bit of a trick. There's essentially 6 zones. You are taking your colony, so you have your own board of a colony. You're building up your colony. And then you have the overall board where you're sending your bees to do various tasks. Makes sense. Worker placement, you're talking about bees. The sort of trick to this one, and again, I'm going to do a more full review, so I just want to give overview ideas. The overall trick to this game is that, unlike a lot of worker placements, when I put my character down, that is where I am, and if it can hold one meeple, then you are locked out. In this game, that's not true. You can knock me out. You can knock out my meeple, and now you have the spot. However, when you knock me out, my bee powers up. And the board has spots on it that the more powerful your bee is, the more effects, or in one spot in particular, your bee must be at the highest power to be able to use. So it's a worker placement game where, and you're doing other things as well. You're also building up your essentially own tableau and all of that, but where you can knock other people's around. And I might want you to be doing that. I might be going where I know you want to be so you can power me up to be able to do the actions that I actually want to do. This has been a big hit. I know tons of people have been playing this game, and this is one of the big darlings of this year. And I'm very excited to actually be able to duck into this, try it out, and really, honestly, I know I'm going to enjoy it. This is the game. It took me a little bit to decide to buy this one, but when I looked at it, I said, you know what? I watched it and I said, this is absolutely a game for me. So if you have interest in worker placement style games, this is a great game to take a look at. Full review coming. I reserve all judgments until I actually do that review. So on to the next thing. All right, so next game. I like worker placement games. So the other game I bought that night was Darwin's Journey. Darwin's Journey is another worker placement style game. This one, who does this one? This is Thundergraph Games. So, again, they're one I just personally don't know their stuff. This is a 1 to 4 player game, so you can play solo. I am going to be playing it solo. I'm also going to play it in groups as well. This one is quite a bit more complex, so I know like my wife's not going to enjoy this, but I do have some groups that do. It says 30 minutes per player. 30 minutes per player is definitely when you figure out how to play the game. This one, 8.2 on Board Game Geek, so very well rated. Again, game that came out this year, 3.85 out of 5. So high complexity. The games, very high complex games, tend to be like near 4. You can get games that are higher, of course, but that's a very, very complex game. I said it's a worker placement game. The sort of bit to this one, as best I understand it, because again, I still got to tuck into it to read through everything to get a really good impression, is the fact that it's worker placement, but your workers can't do everything at start. You essentially have to get your workers trained up, so you have to make them better to be able to do certain actions. And as the game goes on, you're able to score your points from that. This is one of the games that I went through and figured out that I wanted to look at / get before I went to PAX. Last year, I felt like I did a very bad job preparing myself for PAX, of figuring out what is the cool things, what are things I want to look at, what are games I may want, what do I want to actually try, where do I want to be, all of that. This year I went in with a list. I didn't get to everything on my list, and I didn't buy everything on my list, but I was able to do enough that at the end I said, you know what, I had a good PAX, I tried games I wanted, I tried things that I just saw that I didn't know I wanted to try, and I was able to make this experience as best I can. This is something that was on my list, absolutely picked it up again. Review coming in the year. This one's a big complex boy though, so we're going to have to see exactly what that review looks like. But I would like to do more big game reviews because I enjoy doing that sort of thing. So, other things that were picked up. I absolutely love Ark Nova. I think Ark Nova is an absolute great game. It is, also to an extent, point salad sort of. I don't want to say worker placement because it's not really that, although there is a little bit of that. There is some workers that you're placing. It essentially has several different types of games all rolled into one. If you ever played Old Civilization, where you essentially have a set of action cards, as you use them, they go down to a lower level, so they're less powerful. So if you wait to do actions, you have better actions to do. But you're essentially, it's I Built a Zoo, the game. And what they did is they put SeaWorld in the game. So Marine Worlds, it's an expansion for it. It adds all kinds of other sea life, sea options, adds new universities, everything else up for the game. If you're a fan of Ark Nova, I think this is an absolutely great buy to get because it extends more of what you do in the game, adds some more variety to it, and just improves an already amazing game. Absolutely love Ark Nova. Absolutely can't wait to get that to the table. Hopefully, again, the new year when I have some time. One other thing I want to show. Now, I'll preface this by saying that we did get other games. So my wife is much more of a party gamer. She'll play a lot of these things. Oh, actually, I thought of one other one. I'll have to go grab that in a moment. She got quite a few different party games. So she got games like This Is Not a Hat, where it's essentially a memory sort of game where you are taking cards, flipped face down. You're looking at face up originally, flipping it face down, and trying to remember what's on that as you get cards passed around to you. There's never more than number of players plus 1 card on the board, but it does get tough after a little bit of trying to remember what's there, what came out, and all of that. Other things she picked up, I know she picked up, that's it, couldn't remember it, so I had to pause and look it up. Someone Has Died. This is a party game where essentially you are voting on stories told by other players in terms of trying to figure out who told the best story. The cards that you either have or get flipped to you determine what sorts of things happen in that story. So you might be forced to come up with various, insane things that you're going to try and say and make sense of why that's okay to do. She picked up a few other type of party games, which I absolutely enjoy. But other game that I picked up that I want to talk about. So this was on my list that had come out of other spots that I absolutely wanted to try. They have a first look area, so it's games, like I said, new games.s and all of that to try out. Sat down with my wife. I wanted her to try this. It was Bonsai. I knew that I would like it. This is by DV Games. I knew I wanted it. I know that she would like it if she tried it. We tried it. She liked it. Went and ordered it immediately. They didn't have it for sale there. Couldn't get it for sale there, but did pick it up immediately. For bonsai, it's at 7.4. Weight 1.82 out of 5, so a little bit lighter. In this game, you are essentially building a bonsai tree. To build the bonsai tree, you are either meditating or cultivating. Meditating is taking cards, so there's a spot in the middle where you have some cards. You're either taking a card or adding things to your tree. You have restrictions of how many things you can plant at a time, how many tokens or tiles that you can hold. You get tiles by taking cards. Some spots give you tiles, some cards give you tiles. Some cards let you do different ways to score and all kinds of different things. So those are your two actions. You are also looking at endgame scoring tiles. The big thing with the tiles are when you meet the criteria, because there's naturally 3 of each. When you meet the criteria, you may take the tile or you may reject it to take a higher level tile later. However, you may never go backwards. So if one of the tiles is about putting out wood, let's say it's 5, 7, 9. You have 5 bits of wood into your bonsai tree. You are now eligible for that first tile, which is worth the least amount of points. If you take it, that's yours. You may never take another one of the wood scoring tiles. However, if you skip it, you may now score the higher level tile when you meet its requirement. However, if your opponents get there first, then you lose out. So there's even a bit of wagering, paying attention. What are other people doing? Will they get to it as well? So this is a bit of a lighter game. This is a nice, fun game to be able to sit down and relax and play, where you're not feeling that crunch, but there is a bit of interaction because you are taking tiles or scoring tiles, I should say, at the end, or cards that I may want. So there is a little bit of that there, but still being light, and you could still play this game and do fairly well and have a lot of fun, even if you're not worried about what your opponents are doing and you're just trying to build a very nice looking tree. So you do have that as well. And I just thought there is one more that I wanted to show. For the other one, I'm not going to go and try to find it right now. It's, I think, even in my car, because we had a family party this weekend, so we brought various games with us. The other one we picked up that my wife absolutely wanted to try was Santa's Workshop. This is also a worker placement game. Apparently, that's all I play currently. But it's Christmas themed. It's a bit lighter. You are essentially a team of elves trying to do the best you can to make Santa care about the things that you've done. You're doing things like taking care of reindeer, making toys, decorating a tree, all of that. It's all just various ways to get a bunch of points at the end of the game. But the theming is fun, bit on the lighter side. So if you enjoy worker placements, but you don't want something quite as heavy, that still plays very fast, because this one is very fast. It's really good. This is by Elf Creek Games. Really enjoyed the time that we spent. We went through a couple rounds of it. Wife liked it. They had sold out their last copy minutes before, so I had to go online and order it. So we just got our copy in, and we will be playing that before the season changes. I specifically asked her, hey, are you going to want to play this after Christmas? Because we're running out of time. And she said yes. So I will let people know if she changes her mind about that and no longer wants to play the game, because Christmas is over. So the one we picked up, this is the second edition of the game. The first edition came out in 2017. But it's a lot of fun. If you like a little bit of a lighter game, this is a lighter game that, again, much like Bonsai, this one a little bit more interaction because of the things you're doing. But again, you can kind of sit and look at your board and be trying to do the best you can and just trying to have a fun experience. And that will translate pretty well into your points. You won't necessarily... It's not like some other games where if you're not paying attention, everyone's going to outpace you so crazily. That's not really going to happen here. We tried a variety of other games. There was tons and tons of publishers. Absolutely tried a whole bunch of stuff out. Particularly good booths I always like to go through is Chip Theory Games and take a look at their stuff. I have a bunch of Too Many Bones stuff. I looked at some of the other things. Just didn't up splurging on that. If you play Lorcana, that had a huge presence there. So that was all there. Another fun game I played, which I'm going to have to pause for a second to come up with the name. So one of the other games I actually sat down and played with some of the people from one of the hobby shops I go to, the Wargamers Guild. We played Fire Tower. Fire Tower, you were essentially trying to light other people's towers on fire. So there's a big old fire in the middle, and you get on your turn, depending on the direction of the wind, you put down a fire, and then you play a card that could do things like creating more fire, removing fire, being water to put fires out. You could be chopping down trees to help protect your zone. So essentially, everyone has their towers in the far corners. If the fire ever reaches the final part of your tower, you are out. However, when you're out, you're not truly out because now you essentially become the spirit of the woods. And the spirit of the woods means you now roll a die on your turn. And depending on what you get on the die, you get to do things, which could be trying to light other people, their towers on fire. The way you win the game is either you're the last place standing, or if you were already knocked out, that you knock everyone else out. So in my game, I was the first person out due to essentially just some bad luck. So when I went out, now on my turns, I'm trying to burn other people's places down. And if I do burn them down, I get to take another turn. So if I can take them out in quick succession, or if I can knock out the person who goes after me, now they're on my team, and they can knock out someone who's left, then we win. You, as the tower player, person with a tower left, only win if it gets to your turn and you're still around. So if we can knock you out on our turns and you're the last person there and we knock you down, we win, and you're the only person who loses, per se. It was a lot of fun. It was a very light game. Someone else picked it up, so I didn't have to worry about grabbing that. But it was a nice, fun, light little game. I played a variety of other things. I don't know if I'll go into too many of them, just because I don't necessarily have them here. For things that I tried I wasn't a big fan of, there's always some of those things. One, you're essentially stacking ingredients on top, so you're making a terrible sandwich because you have bread and lettuce and things like that. It's a stacking type of game, it's a dexterity type game. But you're also stacking just weird meeples and all. It wasn't my sort of thing. I don't remember the name of the game, so I'm not going to name and shame it from that. When I looked around, though, I felt like I did get a chance to try some big games. Things I didn't get to try that I think were really big. The Fox Experiment is a big one. I didn't get a chance to sit down there. We actually sat down and tried out a copy of Dracula versus, what was it? Helsing. Yes, sorry, it's Dracula versus Van Helsing. In it, it is essentially a card-based game. You have a small board in front of you where currently everyone's 5 humans in every spot. What you're doing is you have 5 hidden cards, because there's 5 different zones of people, and it is a high card to win sort of game, although there is a wild symbol. Every round, whoever has the wild symbol trumps everything other than higher cards. So if a blood drop is the high symbol now, if I have a 2 with a blood drop and you have a 7 of anything else, I win. Otherwise, if we both have blood drops, now we go to high card. If you're the Dracula player, your goal is to turn 1 full zone to vampires. There's 5 people in the zone. There's 5 rounds in the game, so turn them all, or survive 5 rounds. If you're Van Helsing, you win the game by Dracula starts at, I want to say it was 14 health. Every time you win a zone, you take a health off. So if you can knock them out, you win. What's interesting here is the cards are originally hidden, but when you have your 5 cards, you draw a card, and then you can either ditch it or replace. But every card has an effect on it as well. Some of the cards make you reveal your own card in front of you. Some of them make you reveal your opponent's. Some of them let you swap cards around. They give you a variety of effects. When 5 cards have been played, so when your discard pile is 5 cards high, you may at any point declare that you're done. I know Dracula can declare it. I can't remember if Van Helsing can as well, but I know Dracula can declare that they're done. Then you pair off the cards, compare them, going down the row. Whoever has the better card wins the zone, either takes a health from Dracula or converts a villager. We played that for a bit. It was fun. Didn't have any interest in actually picking it up, but it was a fun little game. There's a variety of other small games and things that we tried out. What I would say, though, overall for the experience in general, 1, it's a great experience. For tips for a convention like this, 1, go prepared. Go prepared means a few things. 1, bring food. Things are super expensive food-wise. You're going to spend tons of money and not get great food unless you're going outside of that area right there. Again, you can go to the market, but I try not to leave. So bring food. Bring whatever you want. For me personally, I use actually Huel, a drink mix thing. So I brought that every day with me. That was my lunch. For dinner, we usually would grab something, or we just did eat a little something there, but we at least skipped one meal to do otherwise. Brought a bunch of beef jerky as well, stuff like that to be able to make it through. Bring drinks, if you know you're a person who needs caffeine, bring caffeine. Bring things to be able to keep you involved. Staying hydrated is very important. Wearing comfortable shoes because you're going to walk tons, walking 20,000 plus steps every single day, going around this vendor hall, other areas. Like I said, we went to Classic Cardboard as well and played some old classic games. I know my wife completed in a Clue tournament and all of that. So there's tons of things, tons of space that you're walking around. In the evenings, you're probably going to be sitting more to sit and play some of these games with either the friends you bought or random strangers. People are looking for anyone to sit and play games with. You can find games easily. There's ways to put up that you're looking for games. There's an unpublished room of games for people who want to get their games into the public, who want people to try them out. We played actually a great game in there where you're given, I want to say it's 20 seconds. You are given 2 random words and you are trying to draw them as a picture. So you might be given, smiling elephant. So you have to try and draw that. You get points if the guesser gets that. So what's going to happen is in your 20 seconds, you'll draw that. Everyone else has ridiculous things as well. One of them was flying alligator. I think was one of the ones I had. So I tried to draw a very badly drawn alligator with wings. And then you take that and you go throw it off to the side. They stack in a few more cards of both types. And then whoever's the guesser has to look through all these card stacks and figure out the pictures. You get points for drawing well and them guessing appropriately. That was something that is coming out in the not too distant future. We've been there before. We've got our copy of Nut Hunt, which is sort of a placement style game, a matching pairs game where you are then placing down squirrels and you have a fox moving around and all. We tried that as well. Hey, we really liked it. We kickstarted it when it came out and all. So there's a variety of options. There's tons to do. You're going to need comfortable shoes because you're going to be moving a lot. Take time if you need it. If you're the type of person who can't move for 12, 14 hours a day, that's okay. Take your time, relax, sit down. In the middle of the day, stop for an hour or two, sit and play a game, do whatever you need, recoup as you need, spend the time that you need. Don't wear yourself down and crazily, but if you prepare yourself well, you'll know. For me, what I did is I made a list of what are the things I wanted to see and what are the publishers I wanted to do. They always put out a list of both publishers, so you can check those. They put out the games there in the first look area, so you can know what to try there. You can see what events and all are running. So weeks before, I have my schedule down. I have everything I would like to do. I have the things I would like to try. And I try to go in prepared so I can spend my time appropriately. This is especially important if you're going for a short amount of time. And if you're going to any sort of big convention like this, I think it's a good idea. The vendor area is only open till 6. So after 6, I can play games with people all day. But before that, I want to have an idea of what I want to try and do. The time goes a lot faster than you think. We found partway through Saturday, we realized oh man, the hall closes. This part of the hall closes in 2 hours. And I've only done a few certain things that I wanted. There's a lot more on my list. Okay, let's get to this. So I think having a game plan absolutely helps you out. But like I say, if you want tournaments, there's also tons of board game tournaments. There's a variety of things for you to be able to do. But go in with an idea. I think you have a better experience if you have some ideas of things that you want to do. If you don't get to it all, that's fine, but at least you'll get to some of it. I know one of the things there I wanted to play was Kuntahora, which I'll be honest, I might review it more later. I was not a giant fan. I'm liking it more now when I think back on the experience, but at the moment, I really didn't like it. I thought it was fiddly without purpose. I feel a little better about it now the more I think about it, but I'd have to play it more to get a better feel. But I know it's something I wanted to try, so I made sure to go to CZE, and try it. So going with a game plan helps. Going with people really helps as well. Like I said, I'm lucky that my wife will go to all of this. She won't go to miniature stuff. That's why I don't do miniatures there. She has no interest in that. But board game stuff, she'll go and spend the whole day with me. Going with friends. But even if you don't, there's ways to make friends. Everyone at this is great. Everyone at that's very nice. You're going to make friends. There's spots for looking for groups, looking for people. There's meetups you can do. There's all kinds of ways. But it's a great time to be had. So those are some ideas of what to do at conventions to help yourself out. I said, this is now, I've been to all of them. I've went to every single year. I go for the whole weekend every time. I'll be going next year as well. We'll see what we look at for there. So for other things you should see coming up from me and the channel here, I'm going to be doing reviews of all the big boxes that I showed. Those are probably going to start in January, especially once I move some stuff off the table I have over there. But we'll be doing some bigger box reviews of those because I want to do that. I want to explain how to play them and overall thoughts on them. I love the idea of trying to get into more board game reviews. That'll probably be a solo project because I don't really have anyone else to do that with. I doubt my wife wants to review games with me. I'll have her talk to me about it so we can talk about them together and try that out. But I'll be the one doing the reviews. So we'll be seeing that. If you're interested in seeing more board game related content, more content about any of this, likes, comments, subscribes, all this sort of things, tell us, leave in comments saying what you want to see. all of that really does help out. It does also tell me what sort of things to talk about. I do this on the channel because I have a passion for the things I talk about. I like doing it, and people want to see it. I wouldn't be doing these things if no one watched it and nothing like that. It is absolutely motivating to see people give likes, to see subscriber numbers go up when you release the video because people like what you put out. All those sorts of things really help. So we do ask that you do take a look at any of that. All right, I think that belabors it enough. So that shows you the main things we did at PAX. If you went to PAX or another big convention like that shortly, leave comments down below on this YouTube video to tell me what sort of things you did there, what you saw, what was your big darling of the show. To me personally, the darling was probably Bonsai, just because it was a game that I thought would go over well. It did. Wanted to get it right that minute. The other ones, I want to play a little bit more to figure out if one of those. I think Darwin's Journey is going to be my other darling out of the show personally. But just the experience itself is great, and just being there for those days is something to behold. But like I said, if you went to that, leave some comments below. Tell me the sorts of things that you tried out. If you didn't, but you still have a great board game of the year, tell me what your top board game of the year is. Tell me the game that you couldn't stop playing. If it doesn't have to be current, of the games I've currently played, for me, it's probably Ark Nova. Just of games that I've played a bunch of when I think of this year. But I know that's going to change very shortly once we get into next year and I start really cracking some of these other bad boys open here. So, on behalf of everyone here then at the show, have some good hobbying and some great gaming.